Starfield got its official FSR3 update from AMD, so there's no longer a need to go in and run the beta version of the game if you want to try it out. This update's available for everyone, and you can go in and activate FSR3 upscaling now and frame generation, which is what this video will focus on. And frame generation is a new technology from AMD, very similar to NVIDIA's future frame generation that they released previously, and it just goes and basically, for the most part, especially at lower FPS, doubles the FPS you're getting from a game. And this can be a hit or miss experience depending on the game and all that, but in-game FSR3 tends to work better than some of the other mods and software things that are available out there. So I was happy to see this come to Starfield. And as you can see here, as we go through some side-by-side comparisons, you'll see the same exact settings here, but FSR3 frame gen off versus FSR3 frame gen on here. And it does make quite a difference. And what I was really surprised about as we went through here was whether I was really at a lower base FPS that was being brought up to a higher FPS, or at even a lower one where frame gen might struggle a little bit more. It still worked really well. It felt smoother and looked smoother on my screen when I was playing through it here, and frame times actually worked out pretty well. I was expecting to see more like spikes and judder and skipping and stuff like that, but honestly really didn't run into a lot of that, and most of the times due to the higher frame rate and everything else, the game actually stayed pretty smooth and frame time stayed on point, which again I was kind of surprised to see here the way this was coming out in Starfield. So yeah, and here's another example of very low FPS, right? Like 24, 25 base being brought up into the 40s and 50s there, and really looking pretty clean, pretty smooth, and again some decent frame times holding there with FSR3. And again, not too much stutter. So as we go through here, going from 30s to 60s, there's a lot less stutter and everything in the panning across space here. So even those what we might call fake frames being thrown in there and almost doubling the frame rate, 20, 30 FPS more there, it was quite smooth. And getting into combat and that kind of thing, of course, with FSR3 frame gen or even DLSS, it could introduce some input latency, and I have found that that's kind of game to game that it feels different. And in Starfield, I would say for the most part, playing without frame gen here, then switching over to frame gen on, I really didn't notice much input latency difference with this game, at least the way I was playing with the controller and everything here. For the most part, that felt pretty good. What I did notice was my movements felt a lot smoother, the screen looked a lot smoother, especially if I'm playing handheld and not like recording this way and I'm looking at the 144 hertz screen. This really made a difference and felt great, looked really clean, and again, frame times, lack of stutter, it just overall seemed to work really good in Starfield here. So I know we're waiting on the actual AMD driver updates, which will bring FSR3 to pretty much all games, but these in-game implementations of FSR3 are really some of the best when it comes to performance, being smooth, working well. So I like when games bring this way to in-game. And you can see here as I'm switching in between FSR3 on, running around here, and then FSR3 off, the big difference we also get here on Mars as well, from frame times to frame rate and all of that. So in Starfield, in-game FSR3 working really good here on the Lenovo Legion Go. Really happy to see it added to this game. All right, guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. As always, we really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.